Culture for me is about how different people, different groups actually interact with each other, and they build certain habits and certain feelings and art and other type of aspects within each other.
Maybe like customs and history of where you live, where you came from, and I think just probably a lot of the unique characteristics that go into each different group of people, whether it's your language, your geographic upbringing, maybe belief system we instill in our families as we're raising them, and what things we hold highly to maintain our own identity.
I think for museums, it's about documenting and making sure that people understand that there's other cultures or the evolution of cultures that are around. So the museum's job would be to create different tools and different ways to actually portray or display how different cultures are being created and how they evolve as well.
I think our museum's biggest role in culture is to help to preserve communities' cultures, whether it be through things like art and help teach our new generations about previous cultures or our own cultures.
I think we have such a bounty of them in Ottawa. A lot of people take it for granted sometimes, but we have access to things that my young children would enjoy, like nature and history, the Children's Museum in Ottawa. And to a lesser degree, my wife and I do enjoy like the art gallery and things maybe geared a little bit more towards adults. The reason we would choose to go there and spend a day, I think, is to really have a relaxing day where you can just let your curiosity lead you around.
I think the internet and putting these stories online had an impact in visitor coming to the museum and trying to get to the museum. I'm pretty sure it had a bit of impact, but there's different types of visitors where it's they really want to be in touch with the actual artifacts, the actual real things that are that these cultures have had, and to be really in tune and have that experience overall that we can provide them on site where you can't have online.
I could see someone making an argument that maybe the access to information there would make people less likely to visit. I would say in my case it might be the opposite, because I think having the ability to learn a little bit more about what we're able to go see, I think I'd be more likely to go because I'd be able to sort of confirm it was something I was interested in advance. I wouldn't say I tend to use the internet for the same experiences, so I don't think they would, one would prevent the other in my case.
There's there's actually the Museum of Science and Technology, for example, are launching experiences and within a mobile game experience, which is totally different than an online story, or there's different ways that museums are doing it today. Our museum, the History Museum and the War Museum, we're starting to take advantage of those type of different tools to be able to bring outside those stories online. There's the Virtual Museum of Canada, which is an online grant program that pushes other museums to actually bring their stories outside the walls to actually try to promote. So the grant program that we're managing provides that ability for other museums to do it.
I would say the visit to the museum, again, for our family is more about the experience and not necessarily just the knowledge, so I wouldn't put the two on par in our case, but I think certainly one assists the other at the end of the day.
I think we're in a shift at the moment where visitors are not sure exactly how they're going to be interacting within the exhibits and the stories. There's a big variety of different ways museums are trying to use digital technologies, and we're still quite behind in what's possible and what's been integrated in museums. So the expectations of visitors, I believe, is quite there's no expectations. I mean, they're expecting there is some type of touch screen, for example, or very basic interaction. But I think overall, they're expecting that in the near future, there's going to be a lot more immersive and engagement in terms of the expectations of this learning about stories and so on.
I think that hands-on interaction is something that needs to be more looked on at a museum. For example, touch screens to access information at the museum, whether it be under a display, under an artifact, and then maybe just tell us a little bit about more what we're looking at.
There's virtual reality, of course, putting the mindset, or actually just the actual immersiveness within closed eyes and experiencing, for example, a Viking village and looking around and being able to interact with old artifacts in that world and stuff is something that's quite exciting. Now, it's limiting, of course, and it's going to grow because you'll be able to have that experience at home. But inside the museum, we can provide a more personalized experience with technology, depending on your background and what you're looking for your experience, and we can craft it with a mobile guide or different technologies so that you get exactly what you're looking for or expecting as you go through the exhibits.
I remember once at the Museum of Nature, there was interactive slides while going along on the tour. You had an iPad and you were walking along the tour, and it was kind of giving you little pop-ups of things where you were walking and as you were going, which kind of was a nice feature because it was like you were on your own tour, but it was guided.
Well, most recently we visited the Children's Museum in Ottawa with our kids, and I found perhaps not so much technology related, but I think the scalability of the exhibit to the children and the fact that it was, very relatable to them in size, and they were able to jump right in and, touch, play with, walk around the exhibit. It being interactive, I think, made them enjoy it, a lot more, I think, than if it was more of a static type arrangement where you're just kind of walking by and viewing. Anything, I think, that makes it more interactive, because perhaps not being a very knowledgeable person necessarily about the exhibits I'd be looking at, I think it becomes a lot less intimidating that way when you can sort of learn in an unintrusive way while you're, walking around taking a look, and not feel intimidated to ask questions perhaps, or, just not get as much out of it at the end of the day.
I think in 10 years with the available technology, I hope to see museums utilize that a lot more, because like I said, when you go to these museums today, it seems to be the old just artifacts sitting there, and all you really have to do is to look at them. So I would hope in 10 years from now, museums take advantage of things like virtual reality, things like touch screens, even just simple things like automated displays where they're speaking to you.
Probably a unique way to introduce that technology to maybe people that hadn't had experience with it before. Like, as an example, if myself and my kids and my father, who's 30 years older than I am, were to maybe have an opportunity to experience those technologies at the same time, I think it'd be a unique learning experience for each group, because they'd probably all take something different from it, and I think as a result be able to sort of understand the other's perspective on it a little bit more clearly.
I think the future of museums is being crafted in part of being a storytelling organization, to use its own walls to be able to craft these mini experiences, little exhibits, but in a more future or growth of museums, their mission is to try to promote their artifacts of what they've accomplished and all the stories around the artifacts, and to bring that out to the world. So I think those walls that the museum have are going to crumble down in terms of the overall mission of the museum, to go completely outside of these walls, but also to build more of a connection with discussing between the stories and having a little bit more of a conversation with the overall population to understand where we came from and about those stories. So I think that conversation is going to happen, and it's going to be part of the museum. Will be initiating some of those stories, which is going to be exciting.